Okay, hello and welcome to a 26th slice of TLC from us too. That's 6 months now that you've been putting up with us, and hopefully now we're here to stay. You can help make that happen by signing up for our extra shows on Patreon. Nice one to everyone who's already made that leap. Today, on today's free show, we're going to be talking about wild transfer rumours and the shared obsession around them that seems to exist out there, plus mad crimes in Florida. And as usual, I'll have a fact of the week for you as well. First off, a letter. You are nothing but a crawling, sliming little gutter maggot. P.S. The only thing your paper is any good for is wiping my arse. That's Sinead O'Connor to Piers Morgan in December 1994. Rest in peace, Sinead. Second...
The whole start of the show was taking me by surprise, you know?
Yeah,
because you didn't count us in.
It's not on the agenda.
What's going on? That's not on the agenda.
No,
You're just doing a whole show of surprises for me.
I saw that and liked it and added it in.
It's
late.
good, that, isn't it?
Yeah. What a woman. So a couple of TLC-related correspondence now as well. We've had a few emails in and stuff. You might have mentioned, for the regular watchers and listeners, we mentioned old mother Redcap, didn't we, the other week? The woman who had a dodgy boozer on the Whittle and used to let pirates and smugglers and robbers and, you know, all the bad people come and hide in there, and had all kinds of trapdoors and all kinds in there going on. And I asked the question, why was there a statue of this woman in Liscard on the Whittle? Because, you know, she's not a great character.
It's mad, isn't it? Do you know what I love about this? Imagine if we never talk about this. Imagine if we did that now. Imagine if someone went, we're going to put a statue. I don't think about all the statues getting ripped down. Imagine if someone were going to put a statue up.
What should we do?
Who should we do?
Who should we do in Liverpool? I know, Curtis Warren.
Curtis Warren was the first person who batted to Why? He was just a boss drug dealer.
Yeah,
but he was like the best drug dealer in the world, and he's from Liverpool.
Throw him up, maybe in a telephone box.
Yeah. And the other thing that popped into my head is, why don't we have houses with trapdoors and stuff anymore? I'm going to build a house with trapdoors and things. That'd be fucking boss. How do you know
we don't?
It's a great point.
There might be people who do have them.
If you've got a house with a trapdoor, let us know.
If you've got one, write in. Let us know.
I've been murdering people in my house for fucking years.
Well, I did mention the other week that Andy had got in touch with him, and it was his uncle who actually made this sculpture. And obviously me banging on a show saying how come that happened. He said, well, I'll ask my uncle for you, see what he says. So his uncle replied to him. He said he hadn't spoken to his uncle for a couple of years, so that you know, we've done some good deeds there, getting them talking again there.
Unless he hates him.
Well, yeah. I mean, the email his uncle sent, like I wanted to know just how come it was there, basically.
I know that's the bit he doesn't really go into.
He doesn't really address it, does he?
We learn loads about making
He just sort of says, I was working for Merseyside Development Corporation on a number of commissions in New Brighton and Four Bridges infrastructure developments. He knew that there was something around developing the Liscard shopping area, that he knew that there was a budget there, and it just kind of seems like he was rather opportune and just suggested the idea, and the council's gone, sound, here's 40 grand, off you go.
Yeah, well, it probably ties into a theme that we've had right the way through these shows of, like, do you think I said months ago about how decisions are made around the table? Because he's just thrown that in, isn't it? That's what he basically said, isn't it? Where it came from it was his idea, saying, why we could just do this. And then he doesn't know what the decision was made behind the scenes. No. But they just came back and went, yeah, go ahead.
He just knows that, it seems like he knew there was a budget for art, went and suggested the idea, went to the full council meeting, presented the proposal, presented his concept of it. He said a few days later, I was informed it had the approval of the council. I mean, fair play. I
wonder what else was suggested, though. There is one.
I don't know.
I always think this, though. Throw your hat in the ring. For all he knows, no one else put in... His could have been picked because no one else suggested anything.
Well, this is where I'm going wrong, I think, isn't it? I just need to start just like anyone and anywhere that I fancy doing some work for, just send them a letter. You do this, don't you?
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, one day, mate.
Is this a secret, or am I allowed to talk about it?
I love talking about this.
I love that you do it.
One day, I reckon, I'd love, Joe, like you talk about like the afterlife and stuff. I'd love it if when I die, there's someone there going, here's all the letters you sent to people over your life. And the number of times I'll be like, fucking hell, I forgot about that one. I've sent some fucking mad.
But haven't you sent like boss ones where like, like with a wax seal and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And our mate Matt, do you know, it literally like it worked for him. Like, basically, I'll share my secret with our listeners and viewers. My thing is, like, if you're trying to get someone's attention, don't do what everyone else is doing. If you send someone an email we get it, don't we? We must get 2 emails a week offering to do us like TikTok videos, don't we? Yeah. And it's like, fellas, girls, like, everyone's sending the same thing. Like, you're not going to grab our attention like that. And something I realized once was, how often you get actual letters these days that you want. So I don't know where it got inspired from, but anyway, I got myself like a wax seal kit, like in the olden days. Do you know what I mean? And I got myself like my logo made into a stamp. So I started writing letters to people on like old type paper.
You write it with a quill?
With a quill and a feather, yeah. I should have gone that far, shouldn't I? Got it delivered by a fucking pigeon.
Wrote it by candlelight and all that.
And then I put a wax seal on it. So my theory is always this. If you get a letter come through your post and it's got a wax seal on the back, at the very least, you're going to fucking open it and read it, aren't you?
I like it.
I think he did it. Matt copied my idea, and that's how he got in with all these superstars.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it started.
Boss, that's brilliant.
A few months ago.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I like that. I remember a lad I used to work with, and he got the job on a paper. It was a sport, but he got a job because he wrote in, and rather than just writing in normal, like, he designed the back page basically. Yeah. And like, he turned, like, I think he pretty much like sort of turned his CV into almost like a back page about himself that he'd designed, he'd wrote. And I remember the sports editor liked it and was like, well, get him in, we'll have a look at him. That's good, that.
Well, that's the point. At the very least, you stand out from everybody else. My favourite story of this that I like highlighted was Stephen Bartlett, who's got a big podcast and YouTube video now. He said once, and I might have exaggerated this in my memory over the years, which I tend to do, but this is the story as I remember it. Someone, to apply for a job, someone trained an owl to fly through his window in his office and drop a USB stick on his desk. And the USB stick had his CV on it.
Bloody hell.
Fucking mad's that.
What if you were scared of owls? I'm not employing him. Well, he's mates with owls.
I mean, there's all kinds of risks involved in that, isn't there? But again, same point. You're going to fucking remember it.
Talons in your head. Gives a job.
Imagine that. Your owl murdered 3 people on the way through.
Fucking hell. So loads of background in this reply as well about sort of, sailors and, people on the boats and all that being complicit in all this madness that was going on. He describes the woman whose name was meant to be Polly James, a woman in her 30s. Just going back over some of the same stuff that we said, really, that, smuggling was rife in the port at the time. He said, because of the smuggling, I didn't know this, but to be fair, because of piracy, all ships were compelled to leave their gunpowder in the magazine based on the Wirral side of the Mersey, which explains why there's a boozer called the magazine then. And then he just sort of explains about sort of how he got round to sort of, the actual image of the statue and how he designed that. He says, he said, I quite like this bit, like, a woman at night with a lantern and a large cloak, she could hide the light, signalling to small skiffs laden with contraband. She would need a minder with her in this dangerous business. So I envisage a man with fingers like bananas and a face like Gerard Depardieu with a length of rope and a stout staff. I mean, go and have a look. I mean, I know everyone can't get up to randomly go to Liscar, but there's pictures of this statue online as well. So, if you sort of followed this story and you want to see what it looks like after all, let's go and have a look. But yeah, thanks very much for that email. I'm still slightly confused as to why, at a full council meeting, no one's gone, but she's like dodgy, like, you know what I mean?
Criminal.
She was a criminal, like, she was like encouraging crime on our lovely peninsula. Like, we can't make a version of this person that just sits around at the shopping centre every day. But he did do. And fair play to him for taking the opportunity and getting that work. Yeah. Also, we got a message from Sean Dowling. I like this one. She comments on the YouTube and he just said, it's funny how we can just listen to 2 guys talking about their roots, culture, opinion, and enjoy agreeing with almost everything they say, from the weird to the serious, the silly to the intelligent. Just go where you want and keep going, boys. Well, thank you for that. The bit I liked, he said, I'm in my office in Brazil listening to you right now, and he said, could you ask the audience where they listen from? So I like that, and a couple of people replied. There was someone who replied who was watching from Australia. So yeah, let's get some nice stuff in the comments this week is what I'm saying. So follow Sean's lead, just throw in where you are, where you're listening from, where you're watching from. Be interesting for us to see, be nice for us to see.
It is. Do you know what? It is wild, that, isn't it? Like I think, and this is something in life, right? Joe, the whole gratitude thing and like enjoying your life and being happier. We all become too complacent with things that are good. Yeah. And because we've been doing this like with the Anfield Rapping in other places for a while, you can take for granted that like people are listening to this in Brazil and Australia.
Mad, I know.
And it's mad, that, isn't it, when you stop and think about it? Like it's really good.
It is, it's boss, I love it. So a bit more of that, let's do that. And lastly, on the correspondence front, we got an email in yesterday from Chris Parkinson. I just like this one. He says he enjoys the podcast. Went into some great detail about how he watches. It says, I watch every Tuesday afternoon straight after work while having some dinner, normally sandwiches in case you're interested. He says, last week's episode was very good as a music obsessive. I found your discussion interesting. Fair to say my musical tastes are more similar to Gareth's. Aphex Twin and Orbital getting a mention, oof, rather than Paul's, who readily admitted to not being cool or that bothered, but fair enough. What's prompted his email is I said on that show that like I got this thing off Spotify saying I was in like the top 5% of the country for using the platform. And he said, it reminded me of an email that I received from Sainsbury's last December. I was informed of my most frequent purchases throughout the year, mostly fairly standard stuff, bread, milk, etc. But I was congratulated on the fact that I was apparently the customer who bought the most pecorino, is that how you say it? Cheese in the entire of Stoke-on-Trent. And he said, having shared this proud moment with you, I feel necessary to point out that I didn't buy ridiculous amounts of it, just one block most weekly shop, which is seemingly more than most people apparently. I do actually live in Stoke and I haven't been commuting here in order to win this bizarre accolade. Anyway, hope you find this a source of amusement. Chris Parkinson, Campiano numero uno de Pecorino, Stoke-on-Trent. I love that. But I just thought like it could be a little jumping off point for talking about briefly sort of, shit awards or shit accolades you've received. So I've still got my record of achievement.
Remember them
with the maroon folder?
Yeah.
And like, it's so bad. You know what I mean? Like I don't see a scenario where I would take it to a job.
A good example of when we were kids, government doing fucking shite.
It's
making
absolutely
bollocks
crap.
Up that no one is fucking interested in.
But I like to think that like I understand the English language a little bit, having like, been sort of a writer of sorts and that kind of thing. And when I read it back now, I'm like laughing my head off because all the language from the teachers is like really passive aggressive about my performance in school.
Really?
I was a bit of an arsehole for the first three. Also, so like, he mainly does this or sometimes he can be known to do some, you know what I mean? Like just like all little, like everything's like sort of, it's not actual praise, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't show it to someone in a million years, but it's just quite funny.
You just remind me, did you ever take one into a job interview?
No.
I remember going into places and going to them, here's my record of achievement. Like, they were going to go, oh, thanks.
Yeah, wow.
And they'd look at me like, what the fuck are you, what is this? And in my head, even back then as a kid, I'd be like, the government made us do this. It's a fucking way. Every employer was like, I'm not interested.
They're bad. They are bad.
A record of achievement.
They're really bad. I've got like, I didn't get like amazing GCSEs, and yet I've got a letter in my record of achievement as well saying like, congratulations on some of the best results ever achieved at this school, which I think says more about my school than me.
Yeah.
And I remember actually going for a job interview once. It was at the Echo. And it was one of the weirdest job interviews I've ever had in my life because the editor of the Echo at the time started asking me questions that to this day baffle me. So like, he was asking me about, the job was reporting on Liverpool, like FC. And he started saying things like, I see you went to Bowden Comprehensive and Iton. I went, yeah. It's being knocked down now, wasn't it? And I went, yeah. I'm thinking, it's not to do with me. I didn't knock it down. And then he was like asking me about like what my mum and dad did for a living and all this kind of stuff, and like writing things down after he'd asked it as well. And
That's dead unsettling, that, isn't it?
It's like, what's this got to do with my ability to do this job or not? Do you know what I mean? And like, it was proper weird. But yeah, so my record of achievements, I've got a couple of belters in there. So I've got some 100% attendance certificates.
They were fucking brilliant, weren't they? I feel like we should point out for people who
went to
don't know
school
what
every
we're talking
day.
about. Like a record of achievement was literally like a maroon leather, like folder, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Basically
with like
a booklet
gold edges.
with gold edges, and you put stuff in it. Basically, the government were like, this will help you get work.
And it didn't.
And it never did.
No, it was absolutely shite. I've also got a Knowsley Young Writers Highly Commended Award in there. And that
What
was
that for?
That was for ripping off a Wilfred Owen war poem.
Oh, nice.
So I just wrote a war poem in the style of him. And then next minute, I nearly won an award, but I didn't win, and I was only highly commended. So it's shit in it.
I love that. That reminds me. You've said this because I wasn't. This wasn't on the agenda.
No,
so
I've added
I'm
this
just
one in,
popping into my head. The one I got once was a consolation cup in footy, playing for this team.
That's heavy,
we
isn't it?
lost the game, and they gave us a consolation cup.
Cheers.
And I remember coming home with this trophy in my hand. And my mum and dad being like, what's that? It's like the consolation cup. And they were like, what's it for? And I went, to get him beat. Like, what?
Well done, son.
Yeah, finished second in a 2-horse race. Like,
Fucking hell.
Why the fuck are we doing this to kids?
I don't know. It feels like another one that people can send things in there, you know what I mean? I want you all to start contributing again to the show, because I like that when we were in the early days when we were reading stuff out. So send us your shit accolades that you've received, or your shit awards that you've received.
Do you know what? It does tie into like all the stuff that, do you know, like the self-esteem thing, where the world decided at some point, like, everyone needed to win something, and you're like, that's not how it works. No. You're much better off saying to people, no, you only get a fucking prize if you win.
Yeah,
try harder, and if you don't win, that's all right. Not every. I mean, that's going to tie into our transfer chat, isn't it? But you can't have taken part medals. It fucking devalues everything, and it doesn't make anyone feel better. No, it's just bullshit.
You don't look back at it, do you? And like, you find that medal, or I took part in that. Yeah, sound.
It reminds me of a little clip I saw of Jimmy Carr the other day talking to Amir Khan on what's that one, 8 out of 10 Cats, and he went to him, so like, one of your biggest achievements in your boxing career was getting silver medal at the Olympics, and Amir Khan went, yeah, and Jimmy Carr went to him, but silver medal means you finish second, doesn't it? And he went, yeah, and he went, there's only 2 fellas in a boxing fight. Harsh, but funny.
Okay, let's move on then. The Sporting Challenge, as teased in the intro, we're going to talk about transfer bollocks, as I've termed it on the agenda. I mean, I just think I can't be the only one who's an absolute Grinch about all this kind of stuff. I don't mind, don't get me wrong, buying footballers that are good and seeing them play for my football team. What I take exception to is absolute shite that you get on the back of papers or on the internet or whatever, and then everyone discusses it and argues and kicks off on each other about it, and it's just not going to happen. Like, you join the dots, you think of it logically and go, well, that's not going to happen, and yet there it is, and there are people being paid to write this shite, and you're like, come on. And it's every time, it's every year. And why do we all do it to ourselves? I don't really understand. So my jumping off point for this was, in case you missed it, there was a John Richardson exclusive in the papers on Sunday, which claimed that PSG are fuming that Kylian Mbappe has refused to talk to Saudi side Al Hilal after they accepted a world record bid of £259 million for the player. They fear that Mbappe will walk out for free in 12 months and go to Real Madrid. So the story goes that Liverpool, and I quote from the piece, are ready to offer. I mean, what does ready to offer? Just fucking offer it then. Hiya, mate. Do you want to come to Liverpool on loan? No, all right to that.
This is my favourite thing about this stuff. Like,
ready to offer.
The wording of everything. Whenever you watch the news from now on, listen to this.
Yeah.
Like, they don't just go like, so this thing happened. They go, the most devastating thing in the world. And you're like, fucking hell, all right, calm down.
The Reds are ready to offer.
So they're all just sitting around the fax. There's always a fax. Why are there still fax machines?
Yeah, I know.
Just send the fucking email.
Or just paused over the send button. They're ready to have, just sitting in an office for hours on end.
Just let John Richardson get his article out first.
We're ready to offer. We'll just see how it goes down online first. We'll see what everyone says on Twitter. Anyway, the Reds are ready to offer a 1-year loan deal, which, and I quote, gets him out of Paris, brings in cash for PSG, and enables the striker 24 to then complete his dream move to Madrid. It followed up to say, Jorn, that is Fazer Lamari, also his agent, is an avid Cop fan. I fucking hate that as well. Cop fan.
I know.
Just say Liverpool.
Yeah.
No one goes like...
I support the Cop.
I support Cop.
Imagine, we should start doing that. I support Cop.
You a red or a blue? Cop. What? I'm a Cop fan. What?
I reckon we could start a new movement.
It says in the star in the mirror, Cop.
This just adds to... I think we should combine some stuff we've been chatting about already. Let's write with one of my wax-sealed letters to PSG and offer to buy, because like, why is this any different to them doing it? We'll offer to buy Kylian Mbappe for 500 million
for the late challenge.
Of course, they'll sell him to fucking anyone. Yeah, if someone gives them 500 million, they don't give a fuck about him and his career. Yeah. They just want a load of money. So we'll offer to buy him for the late challenge. We'll set up a new team. Say he's going to be the star striker. We are avid Cop fans as well.
Play on the pitch.
So his Marta like us,
with Kylian Mbappe in the team.
Take him down the pits. Why not? Offer him what were they offering? We'll sort out the money later. This is what business does.
But yeah, so the piece, drops in the marting, regurgitates that Mbappe likes Klopp and likes Liverpool, and the club spoke to him before he left Monaco for PSG. Yeah, but he didn't come. That's
my favourite thing. I remember like people behind the scenes saying we were like front runners for him when he was 16. Think of how much the world has changed since then. Because basically, the story I heard from behind the scenes was we were front runners for him, and then he had that season for Monaco where he was fucking brilliant, and everyone behind the scenes at Liverpool was like, for fuck's sake, because we knew he was good, but because he had this boss season where everyone saw him, it was like, we've got no chance now. And that was when he was 16. Yeah. We knew we had no chance.
And as you say, it's only gone up and up from there. He's been left out of PSG's pre-season tour. There's talk PSG won't play him, and then there's counter talk that he'll sue for restraint of trade if PSG do that. So it's all messy. But the idea that Liverpool are coming in and his saviour, he's on £2 million a week at PSG. Mo Salah's our top earner on 350 grand a week. So there's that.
And he's in the same position, by the way.
Yeah, and also, I get the thing, and I've said it myself before in the past, old shows on the Rap or whatever, where you go, yeah, but if you got Mbappe and, parachuted him into the dressing room, the other lads aren't going to go, I want the same money as him, because he's Mbappe and you're not. Do you know what I mean? They might be all right with it. They might be saying that they get to play with him. Okay.
They get to play with him. I know.
So we'll take that argument, shall we then? Yeah. Well, the Saudis offered them £11.63 million a week to pay for them. And he's gone, no. He only wants to join Real. And the whole story's sort of gone nowhere since. Now, I love the Reds and everything. I'm looking forward to the new season. Not long to go now, like 10 days or so, or whatever it is, until the first game in the Premier League. But we're in the Europa League. You know what I mean? We're in the Europa League. We finished 5th last season. We lost 14 games. And look, I'll bang the drum for Liverpool all day, and I'm looking forward to the season. I'm looking forward to what might happen. I'm looking forward to us hopefully signing 1 or 2 more players. But why would Mbappe come to us now? I've seen people trying to justify it on Twitter as well, find some way to justify it. Do you know what I mean? No, I want to cling to this story. I like this story. I don't want it to just be beaten away. Is there a way we can say, but it could happen? And the best I saw anyone come up with was, PSG wouldn't want Liverpool. Wouldn't mind Liverpool having them because they wouldn't play them because they're in the Champions League and Liverpool in the Europa League.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about Mbappe?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He doesn't want to play in the Europa League, surely, does he?
No.
So
Well, why is he leaving PSG? This is the point. He's leaving PSG because it's just a fucking waste of time playing for PSG, isn't it? They've all gone there. They've all made all this money. And they realise it's a waste of fucking time because what's the point? You win the French League and what? And this is the funny thing. I always think about him, and there's a handful of players in the world now who've put themselves in a position where there's only like 3 clubs they can play for. And once you've played for them for this much money, you're fucked. Because let's say he goes to Real Madrid now because they will pay him this. How old is he?
24.
24. Where does he go next? There's nowhere left to go, is there? Unless there's another, like by then maybe Newcastle have become good and they're the next oil-fueled club that can afford him. But you're like, what's the fucking point in this? I don't get it.
I don't get it. Like, I mean, you know, we didn't get him. And like there was a piece in the Telegraph and it said like that Mbappe chose PSG instead of Liverpool going back because Liverpool were unable to convince him that joining them was the best move for his career. So why is it now? Because you fell out with them and you don't want to knock around just, you know, picking up your wages or whatever so you can come and play footy for a manager you like and blah, 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 blah.
But that suggests he made that decision to go to PSG like for career reasons. Like, no, he didn't.
But it also suggests that
paid him the most
if
money.
He was available for a year before he goes and joins Madrid, only us are interested, yeah? Not like every footy team in the world.
Man United wouldn't have him on loan for a year.
You know, or whoever. City, you know, whoever you want.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know what I mean?
Well, United literally need a striker as well, don't they?
Yeah, well, they buy him on, I mean, more generally, away from the Mbappe bollocks, I just wanted to talk about really, you know, what is the obsession with this shit? You know, the BBC have long made it known that transfer gossip is one of the most popular things on their website. And we had something, you know, here, if you like, closer to home some years back when the official Liverpool site started to run transfer gossip about LFC. And I remember loads of people got kicked off. Fans were like, why is this crap on the official site? And obviously the people on the site at the time were like, it drives absolutely loads of traffic. And we're told that that's what the club wants.
Yeah.
And like it used to have disclaimers on it saying like, you know, like these are reports from the press and nothing to do with Liverpool FC type of thing. I don't think it doesn't happen now. I had a quick look yesterday to see if they still do it. It's long gone by the looks of it, but they did do it. So it obviously does drive traffic. We know that. Now, when I was looking through all this, the BBC ran a piece in December 2016 about the gossip page on the BBC to mark its 15th anniversary of being online. So it was launched in 2002. This piece said that since its first appearance in 2002, the gossip column has consistently ranked as one of the most read pages on the BBC website. In the most recent transfer window, it averaged almost 1 million browsers per day. But can you believe a word you read in it? To mark the 15th anniversary of its introduction, we've looked back at every gossip column from the summer transfer window to see how accurate the rumours were, whether stories about some clubs proved more reliable than others, and to discover which sources were the most trustworthy. And then it goes, how many of the rumours became reality? So of almost 800 rumours reported in the gossip column, this is in 2016. Throughout July and August, only 1 in 3 materialised as a transfer. Now, I'd lay any money in the world that hit rate has got worse, not better, because you've got websites now, you know, like that Court Offside or whatever, where they are just absolutely wild rumours. Like, it feels like it is some lad in his back bedroom making them up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, the only conclusion to reading them is bollocks. And yet, the BBC started putting, like, Court Offside and stuff like that in its gossip column.
Yeah.
And it must only be because everyone's fueling this thing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't get it. I don't find any pleasure in reading absolute bollocks. It just annoys me.
Did you ever though? Because I was thinking about this on the way in.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can remember if we sort of go back, and this works to what I've got on the agenda as well. If we go back in like the history of footy gossip, if you like, you know, pre-internet and things like that, you had those like premium phone lines, didn't you, that you could ring up?
Aye.
Not them ones. No, to get footy gossip.
Someone had just breathed down the phone at you, them ones.
To get footy gossip.
Yeah.
And so like,
so people must have phoned them.
So,
people
on like teletext and see, well, it was teletext because that was the one with adverts, wasn't it? So that was
I'd love it. If you are under 30 and listen to this podcast, I want you to let us know how often you're going, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
So teletext. Well, he's doing it in the background there.
Teletext and phoning people to get transfer news.
This is before the internet. Well, you've still sort of got it, haven't you? Kind of teletext when you press the red button on the BBC and all that stuff comes on. And, like, it used to be 301, didn't it? For the
301, yeah.
For the footy. And, like, Envision scores and all this kind of stuff. But on teletext, they used to have, that was like ITV's version of CFAX. They advertised these, like, premium numbers where you could ring up for football gossip. And I remember ringing one once because there was a rumour about Liverpool. And I wanted to know what it was.
And what was it like?
Well, the fella went on for fucking ages.
Yeah.
Obviously racking up me half of his phone bill.
Keeping you on the edge of your seat.
It was all like, and there's no doubt where we start. Liverpool. And I went through this huge spiel where he didn't say the name. And I'm going, come on, lad.
Yeah.
Man, just thinking about me dad getting this phone bill and like volleying me all around the house.
It's like literally like Jim Royal, do you know that scene in the Royal Family where he's like, hey Cheryl, who do you know in Aberdeen?
Yeah. It was one of them. Who's been ringing 0898 here?
0898. Who's phoning 0898 from my house?
I thought you had some crunchy socks in your room. No. And it was a rumour. It was a rumour that Edwin van der Sar was going to move to Liverpool. That was it.
Is that it?
And obviously it didn't even happen. And meanwhile, I really pissed my dad off by, wasting his phone bill on that shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess once upon a time, there was a time where I would be interested in it. I just think it's gone too far now. I just think like it's just ridiculous now. And like, discussing every one of these rumours to the like nth degree just seems like a huge waste of time because just the basics of like working it all out. Like I found a piece which was good actually. That was in 442 where they tried to dig into the whole phenomenon and all that kind of stuff. They dated it as going back all the way to 1969 and it being a Rupert Murdoch created phenomenon. So they said that it was basically he couldn't get all the footy match reports in some of his first editions because of, printing presses and deadlines and all that kind of stuff. So instead they started publishing transfer shite. And people liked it. And then when the presses, when a different situation occurred around the presses and they were able to get the footy matches in, they took it out. And people went, no, we want it back. We like it. And so that was it then. That was the start of it. And what 442 did in this piece that I found, they spoke to people, but they spoke to them anonymously. But it was quite interesting. So like an agent, a tabloid journalist, a Premier League player, a chief exec, and there was some, there's some interesting bits in there, and possibly some little bits that I hadn't actually thought about. I mean, there's plenty in there that I had thought about. There's a bit where it was saying, like, what the reporter was basically saying, he keeps an eye on like everyone's contract. He has them all written down, and then he starts to think, well, he's in his last year here. Where would he want to go? He might not be happy, and almost like create the rumor, ring up an agent, ring up. Is this happening? Would you be, blah, blah. And the smallest things that's said back that sounds like it could be. That's it. That's enough. Bang. Yeah. We're writing it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the at least he's making phone calls though.
Yeah, in fairness, like that, I was going to say that Mbappe story is literally just a journalist going, and this is what I think it comes down to. And it's funny that Rupert Murdoch's involved in this because I think if you we might never get to see this, but if you sort of analysed the last few decades, I reckon Rupert Murdoch's had a huge impact on society with. And fair play to him, like he's a clever guy, obviously, but it's fucked us up in many ways. Yeah. Like the way the media's gone and stuff like that. He realised, but what happens is it plays to our fucking darker sides.
He's a lying, manipulative knob.
Yeah, he's a cunt. It's just to make him loads of money and it fuck everybody else, which is shit, obviously. But what he's actually doing is appealing to our like darkest sides. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the thing of like when you're driving down the motorway and there's been a crash on the other side, and this side of the motorway stops because everyone's looking at the crash. That's what this is. That's the side of us it appeals to. And it's mad that like this only happens because we click on this stuff. It only happens because enough people look at it. And the John Richardson story was probably just the Mirror's gone, the Sunday Mirror's gone. We want a big story this weekend and there's nothing there. and he's gone, well, Liverpool fans are the most active online. Kylian Mbappe is looking for a new club. If we write a story, and there was links in the past, if we write a story that Kylian Mbappe might be going to Liverpool, it doesn't matter how fucking accurate it is or whether we've just made it up. It will be the biggest story of the weekend. Simple as that.
I know.
And it will be.
Well, I saw a perfect example of that. So like if you work in like a newspaper now, what a lot of them do is they use software to show, and it's literally up in the office. Like if you're sat at a desk here, you've got a screen there showing you what are the top performing stories on the website now. And like every time I used to walk in when I worked at the Mirror, it was always footy, and it was always Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United.
Yeah.
Any stories around them would be there. And it made me laugh because when I was looking at that Mbappe story, so John Richardson breaks, in inverted commas, the story. And then the Mirror had done another piece, or Mirror Online had done another piece, so to the next day, that said nothing different, basically. But it just had a different headline on it. It was a bit of a rehash of the same stuff, and there was literally nothing new in it. But I straight away saw that and thought, right, so you've got someone in the Mirror office saying, just get something else up about Mbappe. That's absolutely flew when we put that one up. Do another one, and people will see it, and they'll click on it, and they do. And it's like this, it's a circle of bollocks, isn't it? I mean, it's like, the journalist in this particular piece says the demand's insatiable, and when you look at the number of readers online, transfer stories come out on top for sports stories. Even a tenuous one involving big clubs can top the charts. Well, I've seen that for myself, and it is a thing.
Well, do you know what would be an interesting stat? When they said they analysed the thing, it would be interesting to see what percentage of the rumours are about Liverpool, Arsenal and Man United players, because I bet you it's heavily weighted in that, because there's more of our fans who are looking at this stuff.
100%. Some of the more interesting stuff out of this particular piece, we had the chief exec saying, a written transfer request is the worst thing for a player or an agent because contracts have annual loyalty bonuses built in, and as long as the player doesn't hand in a transfer request, the club has to pay the remainder of his contract.
That was Joe said interesting about that. He said even if a player is sold in the most acrimonious circumstances, so the player can kick up as much, and we've seen this, haven't we?
Yeah.
Can kick up as much of a fucking stink as he wants to get a sale, but they never put a request in.
Yeah, they don't put the request in because they lose money. So instead, they get stuff in the media, they use the media, and it's all part of the dance. One thing that I thought was a little bit interesting in it as well was the idea of, can't find it on here now. It was about the idea that, basically if your club wasn't the best and, you didn't sort of win stuff and it was, a little bit sort of a grind to be a fan of whatever this club is. Because it reminded me, and I've said this before, we are lucky to be Liverpool fans and see the things we've seen. And there's plenty of clubs, even some fairly nearby, where they're just never going to see that. Yeah. They're not going to get those experiences. There's a t-shirt or a flag, or might even be both, that says, we've seen things you'll never see. And it's right, innit? And so, the point made here was that some people almost, they love the transfer stories and they love these big links to players that could, because it's like the dream, isn't it? It's like the hope. It's like, this could take us to another level. This could be the time we finally do win something. Do you know what I mean? And there's been times, hasn't there, in the past, I think, where, players have been linked to players, or the monitoring players is another classic, isn't it? And you think, I've thought sometimes, me being the cynical bastard I am, I've thought, I wonder if the club sometimes sows these, almost just to say, well, we are trying to get these players.
Didn't that happen with Everton a few years ago? There was loads of stories like that.
Yeah, and it was wasn't there weren't they linked to Shearer once upon a time, going back a long way, when they had no chance of getting them?
Yeah, but it was like the club was constantly going, we are trying to get these box players, and you're fucking not getting anywhere near them, no, are you?
Didn't they put something on their website once as well, by accident, that they bought someone that they hadn't?
Did they?
Yeah. Because I remember some blue, it was absolutely brilliant. He did this thread on Twitter, and it was dark, do you know what I mean? And it was just like, here's all the things that have happened to us over the years, and this is why it isn't fun, being us, type of thing. But it was, you were like, oh my, wow. And that was one of the things, it was like they published on their own website that they'd signed someone that they didn't. And it was like, wow. How does that happen?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Fucking hell.
So yeah, I just thought that my team is a bit shit story, was quite interesting.
I think that's a big one though, isn't it? And it mentions here as well, Joe, the football manager generation, and people like know all these players that they didn't know in the past and stuff like that. And I've often referenced one of my best mates who I've been mates with since uni, who's a Sheffield United fan, and it's like Joe, in real life, I get to see the point you've just made. And there are times when like I've been moaning about being a Liverpool fan, and he's gone to me, fuck off. I'm like, what? He's what? You only won the League Cup this year.
Yeah.
Are you fucking messing? He's like, the highlight of being a Sheffield United fan over the past 20 years has been a couple of promotions. Like there was a point where just getting to the playoff final was good for them, and they got beat 3 times or something like that. And you're like, and I remember just all over the years being like, it's probably something that's really helped me to stay grateful for what we've got,
100%.
because you lose sight of it.
And that's why I think as well, like, fans of our age, if you like, sometimes we get frustrated with fans of other ages because you're like constantly bemoaning the situation we're in, when there's all these clubs that never see any of this ever. And like I know a Sunderland fan, and he certainly used to go home and away all the time religiously. I don't know if he still does. I haven't seen him for a while, but I remember him saying like, it's more fun to be in, I mean, I know they went down further than this, but this was a while back, this conversation, but he said that it's more fun being in the Championship and winning every week than being in the Premier League and getting tonked.
I've always thought that. For those teams like yo-yo, and you have a season in the Premier League where you're getting twatted every week, and then a season in the Championship where you're brilliant. That's a well better season, surely.
He said, like, you go to all these places and like some of them are a little bit more obscure and stuff like that. And he said, you're seeing your team win, you see your team lift silverware because they literally won, the Championship.
They win the league,
And it was like, and you're like, yeah, I get it.
And you see loads of goals. That's what the point of watching footy is, to watch goals go in most of the time, isn't it? And I've thought this, like, think about how fucking spoiled we are as Liverpool fans. Last year, we finished 5th in the league in the end. And I don't know what our win percentage was, but all we focused on was how many games we lost.
Yeah.
And we're all moaning about it. But we finished 5th in the league. So that was better than, 15 other clubs.
And we were in the Champions League still, albeit that it was ultimately disappointing.
We still played big games. And we're moaning about that. But that season was better than basically, other than 4 other teams in the entire Football League, that was the best season you could have. And we're moaning about it. Like it's the worst season ever. Even our manager's referencing it. And going,
I'm sure there's someone who'll watch this now and be like, oh, look.
Here they are, the FSGs.
Yeah, dampening the ambition. You should be looking for, look, you're trying to say that it's all right where we are because you don't want more. Nah, mate, I want us to win everything every single season. And every single season, I think we can. Another thing just off to the left for a minute, I've been thinking about this for a while, almost like to have a rant about it. It's not on the agenda, but the thing, this is our year, and the Scousers always say it. Like, there was a clip from a show a few weeks ago where I said I'm looking forward to the new season. I think there's like a narrative there that there's a lot of players there with a point to prove, and that psychologically that could be good collectively for Liverpool. I think they'll be at it. They'll have this big point to prove, and that got clipped and that went up. And then there was all these knobs in the comments saying, "Oh, here we go, Scousers again. It's our year." And I'm like, it doesn't work anymore. Like, you can do the it's our year when we hadn't won the league for 30 years, but we've done it.
Yeah, but even then, and I take your point on that.
But also, I don't get it because you're meant to have hope as a footy fan.
It's like, sorry, your criticism is that we're optimistic at the start of every season.
But I
what are you doing with your
Neville
team?
Southall said this.
I love that point from Neville Southall.
He said, every year I think Everton can win.
Should.
Yeah.
I've always thought this. If I was managing a team that got promoted to the Premier League, and someone said to me, what's your ambition for this year? I'd say to win the Premier League. And everyone would laugh at me. And I'd say, I don't know what you're laughing at. What's the fucking point in being in the competition if you're not trying to win it?
Oh, yeah? We just want to finish 17th.
We just want to finish 17th and then we'll build from there. Fuck off. Try and win the fucking thing.
It's that weird thing as well, though, isn't it? Like, I wrote a piece years ago now, proper years ago. And the crux of the piece was basically who's arsed. Like, I think it was in the title, it was all the way through, it was the intro, it was everything. And it was like, why are you asked as a footy fan what people will say, in inverted commas? So like, oh yeah, but if I say at the start of the season we'll win the league and we don't, then these people will come to me and go, and what?
Yeah.
So what? Who are they? Why are you asked?
It's one of my favourite things in life. Like, I always reference footy and life and sport because it's true. Like, if you're the type of person who focuses on the worst of everything, I promise you'll be proved right sooner or later. Do you know what I mean? If you're the type of person going, Liverpool will lose, Liverpool won't win the league, yeah, you're going to be right soon. And when you're right, you get to go to me and people like me and you. And I go, great, well done. Is your life good? Are you having a laugh? Because I tell you what, it's well more enjoyable over on this side of the fence, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to be hopeful for the future and we're trying to say things can get better.
It's like the thing as well, like, you know, and I remember like Gary Neville ridiculing this idea. I remember Rob Gutman of Anfield Rap fame. He sort of like lashed out a few tweets some time back, just sort of saying like, you know, when you come so incredibly close to glory and, you know, like Liverpool have a couple of times 90 odd points and not winning the league and things like that, so close to the quadruple, okay, it ultimately wasn't. He was like, it sort of feels like mad that there isn't sort of like, you know, like a silver trophy going back to what we were talking about before. And he got ridiculed for it, including by Gary Neville, I seem to remember. And it was like, that's a weird culture as well, isn't it? You know, like, it's like that 13-14 season that ultimately ended in failure, in inverted commas. But the ride was fucking brilliant. You know,
I think that was my favourite season.
Like, it was unbelievable, wasn't it? It felt like the club was alive. It came from nowhere, to go to the match.
It came from nowhere.
And you had all these players that you wouldn't think for a million years would be part of a title challenge. And they were. And it was like an absolute joy to go to games. You know, it was a buzz to go to the games. There was a buzz around the club, around the city, around everything to do with Liverpool. And ultimately, okay, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And knobheads get to go,
yeah.
But I get to go, I've had a brilliant year following the Reds. Exactly. And like, that's part of it as well. You know, like going to the game and more often than not seeing your team win, going to the game and seeing your team score loads of goals, going to a game and seeing like, you know, geniuses play football. There's loads of joy in that.
Yeah.
And okay, we didn't get to lift the big shiny thing at the end, but we still had a great time on the way. And that is not dampening expectations or saying we should accept, you know, some lower bar. It's saying it's a bit mad, though, footy culture at times, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Like a last point on it. The irony is the people who are having a pop at us being optimistic about all that stuff are probably the same people who are dead excited about the chance of their club signing someone. But why are they excited about that? Because the club signing someone boss that they think they might not be able to get could get them to where we are, which is maybe winning games and maybe challenging for stuff. And so it's like, just join the dots.
I know.
It's all right.
Fabrizio Romano, I prefer the transfer window to the actual football matches.
Do you know what the sad thing is? I think, sadly, he's speaking on behalf of millions of footy fans.
That's why I put it in
there. They
there.
actually prefer it.
That's why I put it in there. That's a mad place, if you ask me. But anyway, we'll need to move on because we've been waffling on. The media challenge. Quick one, this really. I'm nicking this off someone I used to work with, John Ward. I used to work with him at the Daily and Sunday Sport. Wardy these days has got a column in the Daily Star Sunday. And this week, he was encouraging readers to type Florida man and your birthday into Google to see what comes up. Now, I hadn't heard of this before. Apparently, it's a thing, like.
Yeah.
So the premise is basically that it's mad in Florida and that loads of people are committing like absolutely wild crimes that you wouldn't think you'd be able to dream up.
But they're always described as Florida man.
Yeah, Florida man. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do our birthdays then. So mine, June the 21st, threw up a story from 2012. Another, which made me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. How many are there? Yeah.
Another drugged out Florida man gets naked and bites off a chunk of human flesh. And then it says, like, makes me laugh how they write journalistically in America. Like, it's just wild. It's quite regimented in this country, and you get taught about intros and how many numbers, how many words should be in your intro, and how it should work and all of it. they just fucking do what they like over there. So yeah, another drugged out Florida man gets naked and bites off a chunk of human flesh. Good Lord, maybe this really is becoming a trend. This is from the Miami New Times. Following the Miami zombie attack, yet another Florida man got high, got naked and got cannibalistic in that order. And it
I like that, in that order. Well, in fairness, it's a wild story, but it'd be even more wild if it was the other way around, wouldn't it?
Police in Palmetto, is how you say it? Terrible pronunciations, aren't I? They had to taser a 26-year-old Charles Baker after he stormed into his girlfriend's home and bit a chunk out of the bicep of a man who tried to subdue him. He was high on an unknown substance and barged into the home and proceeded to strip his clothes off. He was cursing and screaming and began throwing furniture around the home. He took a chunk of meat out of his left bicep, according to the arrest report. So yeah, pretty wild. It goes on to say that he was tasered a number of times, 4 times, before police were able to get him under control. I did yours as well, mate. July the 7th. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yours pumped out Florida man. Florida man haunts beaches dressed as a Grim Reaper. And says governor should require masks statewide. So apparently this was a fella. It says the Grim Reaper is back, spreading his message once more. The Florida man who visits the state's reopened beaches dressed as death itself wants the governor to require the public to wear masks as the state continues to see a spike in COVID cases. This is from 2020, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that's a wild one, isn't it? Like, what I'll do today is I'll buy...
This ties into the fella the other week who went to jail because he set fire to a fucking phone mast.
Yeah,
it's that, isn't it?
It's like, how do you
you're
get
grown up?
Like, how do you do how do you decide what you're doing in life? Because like I'm into like lists and all that, and like I've got a few
imagine if this was a list.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like someone's gone, yeah,
dress up as Grim Reaper.
Where was that on the list?
Google Grim Reaper outfit, 9 a.m. Find scythe. How'd you get there? I don't know. I just don't know how you get there, really. I mean, I'm doing this all the way through this show. I'd love to hear you two all have a go at this.
I want a competition. Who's got the best
maddest one? So you Google Florida man and your birthday. So, like Florida man and like June the 1st or whatever.
We can play a game here as well. We can play like matching pairs. Let's all do it and see, because I love another drugged out Florida man on yours.
I know, yeah.
Like, it's like even the journalists have gone, fucking hell, another one.
Yeah.
So let's see who can get.
But even the Grim Reaper, he'd done it before.
Well, let's see if anyone can find a matching one.
Oh, here's the Grim Reaper again. Yeah. All right, lads.
Yeah, and he did that on my birthday as well.
There he is again on the beach. You're not boiling in that, lads. So now we are on to rattling through. We're on to fact of the week. I enjoyed this one, I've got to be honest with you. So I used to live in Dingle or thereabouts for a while, just on the old Garden Festival site, for people who know what that is. 1984. Again, old bastard references. So the fact of the week is that they used to burn Judas in Dingle. And it was the only place in the UK where it was known to happen. And in fact, it only happened in a small number of streets in the Dingle. So there were other parts of the Dingle where they were like, what are you doing? So this was a Good Friday tradition only in this area of Dingle, only in certain streets around Dingle. And it was that every Good Friday in the first half of the 20th century, they would basically do what we do now on Bonfire Night, but instead they weren't burning Guy Fawkes, they were burning Judas. Apparently this is a custom that is fairly common in Greece, Spain and Mexico, or it certainly was, but there was no record of the tradition taking place in the UK apart from these streets. The practice generally involved children aged between 8 and 12 who would collect and store wood in the weeks preceding Easter, build an effigy of a human figure along the same lines as the Guy Fawkes, and then the Judas would have to be hidden away from rival gangs who would attempt to steal it. There's even a book about this, Confessions of a Judas Burner by Carol Sexton. She recalls sisters going out at 4 a.m, carrying a burning torch and running through the streets shouting, "Burn Judas." Children would parade the Judas as they ran through the streets asking for contributions with a penny for Judas's breakfast. It would then be burned on waste ground. There was also sometimes a pig's bladder would form part of the ritual. The bladder would be purchased from a butcher, inflated, tied with string before being attached to a stick, and the bladder would be used to beat the Judas. One explanation for all this seems to be that sailors would carry out this ritual and they brought it to Liverpool in some way. There are reports of Judas burning taking place as late as the 50s. It only happened in this particular area in Dingle in this country, as I say. The bonfires were set alight at dawn, and by noon it was all over. The story goes that basically the police and the fire brigade and everything else sort of clamped this one out because, you know, it was a bit mad. Like, there was loads more on it. Like, there was loads of other like stuff off to the left about it, about, you know, various recollections of this being a thing, and people saying like it was literally blistering the paint on houses because these huge bonfires were that close to houses. So you can sort of see, I mean, if you know the Dingle, it's lots of tight terrace streets. You know, you got the bread streets, famously bread. Another old reference for everyone to look up there. It's a bit mad, that, isn't it?
It's fucking wild.
It's absolutely wild that it only happens there. Like, do you know what I mean?
And not even in the whole of the Dingle, just in parts.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, no, this is what we do.
Yeah, I love it. There's something about the Dingle I sort of didn't mind it. You know, it's obviously got a reputation and all the rest of it, but I didn't mind living around there. And I actually sort of randomly, I was just having a bit of a stroll one day, and this fella, can't remember his name, but he was just like, I was taking pictures, that was it, because there was some kind of like mosaic on the side of a gaff, and I liked it and I thought that was interesting, so I just took a picture of it, like, you know, Instagram job. And this fella was like, you know, who are you, what are you doing, blah 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 blah. And I said, oh, you know, just having a stroll around and looking at the area and taking some pictures, whatever. And he goes, yeah, come look at this. Now that could have gone anywhere, and we were talking about this the other week, but
come and see my puppies.
What he actually had was this mad boxing gym, but like inside the end of like a end terrace of an house. Oh. And like, it was a boss setup, and like he was telling me about how, like, you know, all people who've gone on to be like, you know, quality boxers and stuff had started off at this gym. And like, there was these two lads like sparring in the middle of this gap, and you just wouldn't know it. I didn't know it was there.
Yeah,
you would have just walked past it, and I was like, boss. And he was like he was obviously like a community minded man. And you sort of get that vibe a little bit round there, that there is the old chestnut of the being, you know, a tight community, which is good, because, you know, there's a bit of a culture now, isn't there, of all closing your doors and closing the blinds and sticking two fingers up at everyone and not really engaging with them. Yeah. So I always like it when I hear about a bit of community. So I like that he took the time to do that.
I do. Well, maybe I was just thinking as you were reading through this, like, a theme throughout all this stuff is, I often think this, like, how did it start? Like, I remember saying this the other month about the royal family. If you tried to start it now, like, think about these traditions started at some point. And even the Guy Fawkes, we don't stop and think about it, do we? Like, it's fucking mad. We're teaching kids that you should burn a fucking body on a fire.
I know.
That's a bit mad, fucking wild.
Yeah.
And like running through the streets, it just sounds like someone's gone, fuck it, let's do that Guy Fawkes thing another time in the year. Try and get some more money. A penny for Judas's breakfast. What the fuck is that?
I know. It's absolutely bananas, isn't it? We've got a little bit of time left, I think. So just a quick one that I threw on the end of the agenda. Have you ever climbed Snowdown?
This is wild. Another one, it's been like a surprise agenda for me this week. Like, where's this come from?
Have you liked it though?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've had a good time.
So this has come
That's
from...
funny, isn't it? I've had a good time. I've had a lot of fun.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's
nice
good.
Stuff.
So all this is that for ages I've been trying to cajole my mates to climb Snowdown, and for one reason or other it's consistently not happened, and I've never done it. I've never been up there, and I really want to do it.
Why? Why do you want to do it?
Just do it. I just think,
something to do.
Yeah, good exercise, good, like, but a good thing as well. Like, it feels like a good thing to do with your mates. Yeah. You know, like, it's going to be 3 hours or so up. You know, a bit faster coming down. Nice, just like a nice thing to do with your mate. And we're only going to do the piss easy path. We're not doing any of the mad ones. certainly not this time. I mean, my plan is hopefully I enjoy it and then go up another time and maybe try one of the more challenging parts. But yeah, so we're meant to be doing it, weather permitting and all that, Friday. I just wondered if you'd done it, or have you done it?
No, I've never done it. I was meant to do it a few months ago and ended up not. My girlfriend's stepdad loves all that. Like, he's well into it, got all the gear. We'll talk to you for hours about it. Like, he wants us to go and do it with him and stuff. I've always wanted to do even do bigger ones. Like, when you see like the celebrities doing the Kilimanjaro and stuff like that. But I mean, you've got to fucking build up to that, haven't you? If you haven't done Snowdown, you shouldn't be going and doing Kilimanjaro, I don't think. But no, it's funny because stuff like that, I used to be in the Air Cadets years ago. It's a fucking random memory. And we did the Duke of Edinburgh. Did you ever do any of that?
No.
So we did stuff like that, you're walking up mountains. And it's something I always loved as a kid, your map reading and all that sort of gear. I always loved camping. So it's the type of stuff I'd do. And I should probably get back into like a bit of outdoor stuff.
Just feels like it'll be good for the soul. You know what I mean? Like, I quite like walking anyway. But, to go somewhere like that and like to, be away from technology for a bit. And,
that's what I was just thinking. Turn your phone off.
Yeah, all of that.
Get out into the mountain.
It just feels good. And like, I know loads of people who've done it. And like, I'm not too... I mean, maybe being naive, but I'm not too daunted by it because some of the people I know have done it. I can't think, now if you've done it, I can do it then, do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's funny, like, because there's a few of us doing it and we're just organising it and, where we're staying, what we're doing, what all that kind of stuff at the minute. And like, it's funny because, there was a few little like, I don't know if I'm like, fit enough to do that. Like, and I'm like, we're literally doing the piss one. It's just a path. There's no like scrambling, not throwing ropes up. Do you know what I mean? And then, but yeah, it's just all the things as well, like, what food, will I be all right in trainees? Do I need to buy boots?
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. So, I'll throw this one out to the audience as well. If you've done it and you've gone up the easy path, as everyone calls it, Lamberis, I think it is, isn't it? Let us know your experiences of it and let us know any advice that I can pass on to the boys.
Well, I've got some. When you say what food, I remember when I did the Duke of Edinburgh back in the day. Well, I remember like people are getting stuff out their bags like to eat as you're going along. It like, I think I did was like a 3-day thing and stuff like that. People are getting fucking cans of beans out and everything. And I was like, are you fucking messing? However you your bag.
I know, yeah.
I was eating fucking super noodles, do you know what I mean? Light as a feather. And they're eating cans of beans. I was like, you fucking wild.
I thought you were going to say Kendall mint cake.
Oh, well, people, that was a famous one. Like, why was that? High in calories or something?
It's just a big fucking bar of sugar, isn't it, basically?
Is that what it is?
I like it, like it's good, but not sure where I can get some ahead of Friday, like locally, like. But if I can find some. Are you doing it
on Friday? Is that what this is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean?
Yeah. So we're going the Thursday night, kipping over, getting up early, doing it, coming back down, scran, couple of ales, come home on the Saturday.
Oh, nice. You can tell us all about it next week.
Yeah. So
there's one of my agenda points for next week.
Yeah, Robbo's mountaineering. So yeah, we'll see how we get on. I just thought I'd see if you'd had a go, but if you've had a go out there and you want to pass on some tips, please do so. Hope you've enjoyed the show. As ever, if you want more of this kind of stuff, there's a big bank of shows over on Patreon now. Patreon.
It's in your head.
That's just in me head forever. He's not replied after me like shouting him out the other week either. But how many are we on there now? 14, 13, something like that.
I think, 13.
There's loads on there, and like we've talked about loads of different things, and it's fairly sort of non-time sensitive for a lot of the chats as well. There's still people who message on some of the older shows and they're only just catching up now. By and large, the feedback seems to be pretty good, which is great. So yeah, give it a try from as little as £1 a week. But that is this week's free show. Hope you've enjoyed it. Get your comments over, reply to all of those things that I've said we want to hear from you. We do want to hear from you. You can contact us on social. You can leave comments on YouTube. You can email us. There's a form on our website as well, which you can fill out and send us stuff that way. You can just tweet us, whatever you want. We will read it. And if it's good, we will use it too. Thank you. That has been The Late Challenge.